Thanks for tuning into our podcast, Getting Down to Business. I'm Jill Brown, Academic and Career Advisor with the Muma College of Business.
And I'm Ashley Curtis, Career Counselor and Internship Coordinator. Today, we are excited to have you on this episode of our podcast where we're going to be featuring everything from internships, leadership skills, and networking.
And we really want to hear from you, our listeners. We know you have questions about internship, and we're really going to focus on that today with our guest. But any career question, please, and if you can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify. If we ask your question, you will be the proud new owner of this mug. So.
Cool. So with that, I'm really excited for today's guest. We have with us in the studio. Today's going to be a unique experience. We have in the studio Owen Limback, who is a former alumni of USF. And then all the way from New York, we have Ben Schreiber, both with Manning and Napier. Welcome. I'll have you both introduce yourselves. Owen, let's start with you, and then we'll head over to Ben.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I just graduated USF this past semester, so I'm about 3 months post-graduation here. I started working for Manning and Napier right after I graduated, so it's been just about 3 months at the firm as well. It's been great so far. I had a great internship with them the summer prior, and that's kind of what led to me getting this job, and I'm excited to talk about that today.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben.
My name is Ben Schreiber. I am based out of our Rochester, New York office, so out in the western part of New York State. I, similar to Owen, have been at the firm since I graduated from college in 2016, so I'm coming up, I guess I'm six years and 2 months now, so it's been actually a long time in my opinion. I've been in talent acquisition here at the firm for 5 of those years and spent my first 8 to 10 months in operations and research administration before kind of landing in talent acquisition. So I've really enjoyed my time here, and thanks, and happy to be here.
Awesome. And Ben, before we let you go, so for those of us who aren't as familiar with Manning and Napier, can you just kind of give us an overview of what Manning and Napier is and what they do?
Yeah, absolutely. We are an investment manager, manage portfolios for clients. Clients range from high net worth individuals, 401ks, institutional clients, some endowments and foundations as well. Been around for coming up on 53 years, I believe, this year. I think the anniversary is in April, but maybe don't quote me on that specifically. But 50 plus years, long history. Started here in Rochester, have our office down in St. Pete, where Owen works out of, and then have another satellite office in Columbus, Ohio as well. And then we also have Rainier Investments in Seattle, so a couple of actual physical locations, and then some other employees kind of located all across the country.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Welcome to you both.
Okay, we want to get to know you a little bit better, so we're going to ask you both rapid fire questions. All right. So I'll start with Owen. Morning or evening person?
Definitely a morning person. Yeah.
And I'm definitely an evening person.
I love it. Next question for you all. Old school fashion newspaper or online news? Owen?
Love the online news. So much easier.
Awesome. Ben?
I'll take an online news feed also.
I get that. It's very accessible.
I still like my paper, but okay. What about then, what was there? Staycation or vacation outside of Florida?
That's a tough one. I'd probably go outside of Florida, though.
Where would you go?
I just took a trip to Cali that was pretty fun. I'd like to go back there.
Oh my gosh, isn't the coast amazing?
So beautiful.
I mean, it's ocean, but it is different.
Mm-hmm.
Ben, how about you?
I am a huge homebody, so I will do a staycation.
Love it. Love it.
I mean, I kind of like both if you were to ask me. You kind of, there's times for both, right?
Definitely.
Thank you both for playing. So we're going to dive into some questions, as Ashley mentioned, about internships, especially because you just came off of an internship and then hired full time. And so many students ask us, what's the process like, or they're just not sure what to expect. And if you could kind of go through what your process was with Manning and Napier.
Definitely, yeah. So definitely started early. I would make my list of internship positions and opportunities kind of right around Christmas break, just to have an idea of what's out there. And then come January, early February, I'd start building my applications, putting them in, tracking, interviews and scheduling all that. And the goal was to kind of be like done with submitting all of stuff on my end by the end of February. And so that's kind of the similar track I took with Manning and Napier. I actually found out about this internship because a professor distributed the flyer for it. And so I immediately applied. They got back to me within like a week or two, and it was a much faster process than it was with other firms.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And there's a few things to key on for our students is that you, one, were tracking
yeah,
and you applied for more than just one.
definitely. Yeah.
And you started early.
Started early. I read like two really good pieces of advice when I was going through this process. It was one, start early, and two, like statistically, the more places you apply, the higher chances of you getting more return interviews and, you know, building your way up the process. It just gets greater the more places you apply. You know, if I had applied to one or two, the chances of me getting an interview were much less than if I applied to 15 or 20. So, you know, that's kind of what I had in mind going through the whole process.
Yeah. And I think another point that I want to hone in on, so you mentioned you started early, you started in about February. And so when was the internship start date?
The internship start date was pretty soon after spring semester had ended, so start of summer.
Just things that I'm thinking of for our listeners, right? You're starting in February, and typically we tell students look about 6 months in advance. So you're right around that timeline of preparing yourself. It's not like you're looking in February for a spring internship. You're looking in February for a summer internship.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Very cool. So this will be a question for both of you, but Owen, I'll start with you. What does a day in the life of an intern look like at Manning and Napier?
Definitely. So it was fun. There were two other wealth management interns, and so between the three of us, we were rotating between all the different parts of the firm, and specifically wealth management. And so it could really look like anything on any given day, but it was a lot of building models, going through and writing or editing content that was going to be published, or internal training material, talking with people throughout the firm to kind of get to know their position and what they do in their career a little bit. It was a lot of learning. You know, every day it was just trying to learn more about the firm, what they do, the people there, the products they offer. So I'd say that's like a typical day.
All right. So
Excellent.
important to have good communication, interview type skills, because
Definitely.
now you're on the flip side interviewing the personnel there. Okay.
No, definitely.
Ben, do you want to add anything else as far as like what the structure as Manning and Napier thinks about how it's providing structure for its interns and what you're thinking about as you plan an internship?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Owen spoke to the wealth management internship, very well. So I don't have much to add there. And he actually probably knows the day-to-day better than I do. I think we have a few different departments that have internships, wealth management being one of them, our equity research department being another, and our IT department being the third that have, I would consider them to be regular, more cyclical internships. And so the day-to-day will vary depending on what department you're in, of course. Like in the research department, they're doing, bottom-up sector equity research on a day-to-day basis. And the IT department, they're either working in network administration, IT security, systems admin, and kind of managing those roles day to day. I think the one thing that I can say that covers everything is we have our interns work. So it is not a shadowing experience. It is not sit and listen to somebody or just kind of be in meetings and listen for 8 hours a day and then go home. We want them to work. So we train them in the first week or two to give them the basics, give them projects to actually work on. And I think the reality of all of our internships is our goal is that the work that you do is something that we are going to use, whether it's in a short term, whether it's something that we use long term. We've had interns pitch stocks. As far as how many of them, get pitched or get into the portfolio, I'm not 100% sure on that, but interns do get to that level. And so I think it's really important to kind of distinguish the real work versus a shadowing experience. And we try to make it more real work and give them a feel for what it's like. That way, if you end up in a situation like Owen did, where you do get a return offer, you know what to expect, and it's not going to be something that's very, very different from what you had over the summer. So,
yeah, thank you for touching on that, because I think two things that I'm hearing is one, the training experience, which not all companies offer, and I think that's something that's really valuable. And, just having the ability to, have more than just a shadow experience where I think that's a question that a lot of students ask is, what is the work going to look like? Am I just going to be sitting there, or am I actually going to get to apply what I'm learning in the classroom? So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really good. And I can say now, being a full-time employee, the work I'm doing now is it just builds on what I did as an intern. So
Ooh,
there's a lot of
nice.
truth behind saying the work that they're doing is what to expect.
Sometimes interns, I'm glad you both spoke to the training and the fact that you kind of rotate and have opportunities to speak with multiple people within a department or within
Hmm.
that area of your internship. And students, they have a fear and they're anxious. Like, one, do I have the skills needed now that I am here?
Hmm.
What kind of skills are they going to be looking for? So maybe you can address that little bit, the fear and how they helped you acclimate and feel confident to move forward.
No, definitely. I think it's kind of natural to have a little anxiety about going into a new position,
Hmm.
especially like in college where you're not certified or have a degree in anything yet. Um, but you really just got to know what you're good at and go
Hmm.
in and focus on that. Say you're good at Excel, go in there and try and work on as many Excel projects as you can, and
Nice. Yeah.
show those skills and build on them. And if it's talking to people, talk to as many people as you can, get your name around there. Just know what you're good at and kind of focus on that. But yeah, the training is there as well for kind of either more technical stuff if you're not great at that, or presenting content if you need
Hmm.
practice at that. They'll give you opportunities. You kind of have to do a little bit of everything, so it's good to. You're always going to learn something, I'd say.
Thank you for, helping alleviate some of that and giving that hands-on experience. So, and then this transitions, and Owen, I'll throw this question out to you. How would you say Manning and Napier an internship will help students to develop and build their leadership skills?
So yeah, leadership skills. Sorry, leadership skills. I worked with a couple other interns, and we had summer long projects that we had to work on and then present to everybody at the end. And one, we had to have some leadership skills within our little group. That way, there's some organization to who's doing what.
Okay.
So there wasn't like a clear cut process. We kind of had to self define that.
Hmm.
So that definitely helped all of us build on some leadership skills and being a follower at times. So that was good. And then also, presenting it at the end, we had to stand up there and be like the leaders of our project and present this. So that was good. And you also have to take some leadership skills over like yourself, in the internship application processes and
Hmm.
tracking the interviews. You have to lead yourself a little bit and have some organizational skills about it all. So
Ben, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think Owen touched on the main point that I would cover, and that's being a good advocate for yourself. I think that part of being a leader is knowing the right questions to ask, knowing who to ask them to, and not being afraid to ask them. And I think the best way to learn as an intern is by meeting as many people as you can and asking those people as many questions as you can. And so self-advocating is a huge part of it. We try to do as much in the setup of the internship as we can to get our interns exposed to not only people in their departments or the people that they're working with, but also across the firm. So I can think of specifically, I know our managing director of intermediary sales spoke to all of our wealth management interns. Her name's Nikki Hamblin. She didn't work directly with them on much or in any capacity, but she took time out to kind of speak to all of them. And we try to do that as much as we can, is just get our interns to know what other opportunities are out there. Because just because you're a wealth management intern does not mean that you have to be a full-time wealth management employee. It may not be the right fit for you. So knowing what else is out there and knowing what else the firm has to offer gives you kind of that opportunity to move around the firm a little bit, I guess. I think we do as much as we can to set up our interns for success, and to the extent that they do a good job for us, we want to hire them, whether that's in the department they interned in or whether that is elsewhere. So it's kind of a good way to get yourself set up, and being a self advocate is a leadership skill, I think, in its own right. And then you can kind of develop on that, and you'll meet leaders at the firm. So picking up on things that they do is also, a really important piece of it.
Thank you. I feel like I want to key in. You mentioned so much about, leadership, but working in groups or on teams, and
Mhm.
obviously with different personnel at the company, and then doing the presentation. So communication skills are going to be so valuable. And I know students groan when they have to do group work and presentations in classes, but again, you said do something you do well. And if you have those talents naturally, awesome. That's a way for you to capitalize, but also take the time to practice in the classroom environment to overcome some of that anxiety.
Definitely. I leaned on a lot of the skills I learned in like my public speaking courses and all the group work I did in some of my leadership courses, throughout my career at USF. So those came in handy.
Yeah. I'm curious, Owen, how would we started touching? Obviously, you transitioned from a wealth management intern to now a full-time position. Can you shed a little light on what your responsibilities look like now and how maybe that's different from what you were doing or similar, and kind of how that internship prepared you for your current role?
Definitely. So I'll start maybe some of the responsibilities I had as an intern. As we would go through our rotations with the different departments. For example, we could be with the endowments and foundations team. We could be with client-facing FCs. We could be with some of the custom portfolio modeling stuff. And so we kind of got a touch of, what we're gonna do for you, what each of these smaller teams does for wealth management as a whole. Um, and so we would help kind of refine models. If there were specific questions that would come in, they would kind of throw them at the interns first, see what we could come up with, and then use that to give a real answer. And so now my job is to kind of take questions and input and necessities from all these different small teams and clients and give a full response and give a full answer or a full model. And so what we did as interns was almost like a baby version of what I'm doing now. I'm just responsible for more kind of start to finish of a project instead of just giving some input right in the middle. Um, and it's working with all of these different teams at once as opposed to one for every few weeks. So it's pretty similar actually.
And what I'm also hearing is, especially with the opportunity where you get to try different rotations, you were really able to figure out what you liked within your time there, so that when you're thinking about a full-time job, I know we'll get into that in a second, but as that opportunity presents itself, you kind of already know what direction you want to take your career.
No, definitely. I always kind of think that internships are a way to learn what you like, but also what you don't like. And the rotation based at this internship was fantastic because I knew I wanted to do wealth management, but I didn't know what part of wealth management. And so to be able to work with individuals, endowments, foundations, kind of unique situations, retired people, I got to work with all kinds of different clients. It really helped me learn kind of what part of wealth management I want to be in long term.
Awesome. Thank you.
And Ben, we'll throw this one back to you in a sense, but how does Manning and Napier connect with students in order to provide opportunities for internships? Like what's available so that they know and can take advantage like Owen did here?
We try to do a little bit of everything. I think it's a multifaceted approach to recruiting interns. The main avenue for us is via handshake. I think that's probably rings true for most colleges. I know a ton of colleges and universities use handshake, so we just kind of access the open network and post our roles. We have the fortune of being an investment management company, and investment management is a popular industry. I think finance is a popular major. Investment management is a popular industry, so we get hit with applications from the minute we open it. We post our research internship in August, the summer prior. So as soon as Owen walked out the door this summer, that internship was reposted. So we try to kind of go with a long timeline. I know the investment banking world, they're even ahead of that. So we try to match it as best as we can. But handshake is the biggest one for us. We tend to do less on the career fair side. We used to do a lot of career fairs probably 3 or 4 years ago. And this is when we had a couple of different people in talent acquisition. It was myself and then somebody else. And now it's just me. So I try to be time effective. On top of recruiting for all of our internships, I also do all of our full-time roles. So we try to kind of use my time effectively. So we do info sessions, more targeted approach to it, meaning with either finance clubs, investment clubs, different classes we've met with. And we target schools in Rochester and the surrounding areas, mainly for those, just because we have connections built up, and there's typically some ties students have to Rochester, which is more likely to get them to stay at the firm. But we also target schools that are around other locations that we have. I guess, in Owen's case, USF was admittedly not really on my radar prior to hiring Owen, but the second that we hired Owen, it became, we've done a couple of different things. I think, this podcast included. So it's been a really kind of good experience to get that exposure at schools that we don't necessarily have it at. We try to use alumni connections as well. We have interns come to us from schools, really across the country. I think our last internship class had, Owen, from USF. We had another wealth management intern who goes to Johns Hopkins. We had some research interns, one from UPenn, one from the University of Maryland. So we try to use our alumni connections once we have them and use those students as an avenue to kind of figure out who we should be meeting with at their schools, whether it's clubs or organizations that they're part of, whether it's classes that they took, professors that they know. So utilizing those as best as we can. And then we also just have, our website where our jobs are posted as well. So that's another option, but harder to find if you're not looking for it. I think, you don't necessarily stumble upon company websites very easily. So I think that there's a lot of ways that we manage it. I think Owen is probably, I wouldn't say he's an anomaly in the way he was recruited, but he had a connection, I think. And then I got his email somehow. Our first correspondence is an email, and it didn't necessarily come through his official application right away. So Owen has a strong network, and I think that that's very helpful. And I would recommend that all students focus on building a strong network. All it will do is benefit you. And so I get emails from current employees, previous employees all the time that says, hey, I know this student who goes to this school who wants to do wealth management. Would you mind speaking to them? And I will reach out to 100% of those referrals, whether it's a good fit or not. So it's always a nice way to kind of get in the door.
All right, you open that door, and I want to ask Owen, number one, why, what prompted you to apply to Manning and Napier specifically? And then to you, Ben, what made him stand out in a sense, if you don't mind?
Yeah, so like I said before, a flyer got distributed by one of my professors for the internship.
Oh, that's right.
And so I sent an email to the email that was on the flyer and then put in an official application. And I kind of applied and did so quickly for this one because, one, it met everything I was looking for.
Okay.
I knew I wanted to do wealth management instead of equity research or anything else. And this was a wealth management internship. It was rotations based. I'm like, okay, great. I want to see all kinds of wealth management positions. It was in St. Pete, which I liked. I didn't have to commute. I could walk to work every day. Like little stuff like that. But it was a really appealing position. And that's kind of why I acted quickly on it and put so much emphasis on it.
And then Ben, we'll throw back to you.
Yeah, as far as what makes Owen stand out, I think similar to the way our internship ticked all his boxes, he kind of ticked all of ours as far as what we look for in candidates. There is I always say this, and I think I had this written down maybe for to mention later at some point, but I think it's relevant now. The resume is what gets you in the door, and then the interview is where the candidate has a chance to impress on things that are on their resume or things that maybe aren't. So Owen has an excellent resume. I mean, that's the reality. Is he had a few different internships that he had already done before he even applied for ours. And especially being a junior and having 2 internships earlier than that is very impressive. It's hard to get internships when you're not in that junior year. Summer is the sweet spot in our industry. So prior to that is very tough, but kudos to him for having it, and definitely made him stand out. He had a very good GPA, which we look at to some extent. I think GPA is relevant for interns and recent college grads. I think the further you get out of school, the less it matters. Not that you shouldn't try, you definitely should, but the further you get out of school, GPA becomes less of a factor. But I think for an intern, it's very important. I think GPA is naturally a testament of how hard you work to some extent. So you can get a good gauge of somebody being a hard worker because of that. And so, Owen had that, and location was great. He was in the right spot, which was important. For our St. Pete internship specifically, we look for somebody that has a tie to the area, whether it be St. Petersburg, whether it be Tampa, just somewhere around the area that puts them close. We try not to, put an intern in that we're, displacing them if home or if school is not there, because we realize they're less likely to stick, most likely. So it's easier if someone has a tie. And Owen had that, that marked off as well. And he had a very impressive interview. I mean, I guess it's pretty simple from there. He was one of the more impressive interviews I think we've done for wealth management. So it was a easy decision for us at the end of the day.
Yeah, and he kind of opened the door to your awareness of USF and the possibility of other potential candidates too coming your way. So
Definitely.
No pressure.
And I kind of just want to add on to that. So that, Ben, you kind of answered the question of like what got him in the door. I think I'm curious, what was it that happened that made him, when you were looking at a full-time candidate, that made him stand out?
Yeah, I mean, so we have discussions throughout the summer with we try to do check-ins with the interns at the 5-week mark and then again at the 10-week mark. So that's something that I do. And that's more to kind of get a feel for what they are enjoying or not enjoying, if there's anything we can improve upon. I also meet with the hiring managers or the supervisors for the interns on the same cadence, just to see how they're doing. If there's anybody that we kind of have our eye on as somebody that we potentially want to look at for full-time roles. And so Owen kind of fit that mark. I think at the 5-week mark, he was doing well. He was enjoying it, which is a big plus. Because as Owen mentioned, internships are a good way to learn what you like and what you don't like. So if he had not liked it, then we would have probably had a different conversation about what it is he might like. But he was doing a great job. I think his contributions as an intern were more than what we expect, especially right away. You expect some sort of learning curve for interns, and it takes some time to get up and running, learning the firm, learning the industry, depending on what their knowledge base is. But Owen was a contributor almost immediately. So he kind of started quickly out of the gate, and the work just kind of got better. I think Owen kind of carries the qualities that you look for in an intern, soft skill wise in particular. He's a very good communicator. He asks the right questions. It's clear that he's passionate about the job too. And I think that's very important, is being passionate about what you're doing. And that's something that we look for as we interview candidates and as they kind of, work throughout the summer. So he kind of has the right set of soft skills, and wealth management's a very natural fit for him. So that's kind of how we evaluated that we wanted him back. Owen is an anomaly in the sense that we did this program in wealth management internship was brand new when Owen was an intern. It was the first year we had ever had more than one. So this is last year. I mean, this is very recent. So when we got to the end, we didn't really have a program or a full-time role to kind of just push him into. We had to make one, so to speak. But Owen was I realize he's here and can hear me talking about him, but he was very impressive, and it just kind of came down to me talking to his internship supervisor, who is now his full-time supervisor, just figuring out how we can make it work, because we wanted him back. And so it worked out well. Owen is the only person in his department that works in St. Pete. His entire department is in Rochester. So it was, again, a little bit of an extension of what we were used to, but we saw the quality and saw the potential, and that's kind of how it all came to be, I guess.
Very cool. Thank you. And thank you for saying that, because I think I tell students this because that was actually my experience. But I think when you do a really good job and, not only are you having a positive experience with the company, but that company is having a positive experience with you, if they really want you, they'll find a way to make it happen. And so I think that's an excellent example of that. Is there anything you want to add that you feel like things you were thinking about, or were you just kind of soaking in the internship and just seeing what it was about?
I was soaking it in. When I was looking for internships and jobs and everything, I have kind of like not a dream job, but like a place I'd like to be one day. And so I kind of kept that in mind as I was applying and doing my interviews and doing the internship. And a big thing for me was like, okay, is there opportunity to kind of get where I want to be, or work towards that at least in this position? And there was at Manning. So I'd say that's definitely something to keep in mind. Don't just accept every offer you get because it's something. Accept something that's going to meet your boxes too, and get you where you want to be as well.
Awesome.
So
I wanted to ask about Ben brought up the fact that you already had some internships on your resume. So just out of curiosity, how did those come about, or what were they? And
yeah, definitely. The first one was actually as a senior in high school.
Okay.
It was just with a family construction company. I was like a project engineer, so on the job site doing construction management pretty much. Just to kind of test out like if this is something I'm interested in.
Sure, yeah.
And it was interesting, but it's not what I wanted to do. And then I didn't do one my freshman year of college, but then sophomore year of college, I had one in Chicago because I was living there for the summer. And it was with Intrinsic Edge Capital Management, which was a hedge fund. I was like an equity research intern pretty much.
Okay.
Which was really interesting. But it taught me that I didn't want to do equity research. I wanted the wealth management side of, client questions, working with clients over pure numbers all day.
Gotcha.
And so that's what led me to seek out a wealth management internship for my
Mhm.
junior summer.
Did the first internship help you kind of shape your major and then that dream job focus?
Definitely. I'd say doing that like senior year of high school when I was
Mhm.
putting in college applications helped me kind of know what I wanted to apply for.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know if I wanted finance or construction. They were both kind of big fields that I could gravitate to.
Sure.
And just having that little bit of experience just led me to make the finance decision. And then similar, like once I knew I wanted finance, it was either research or wealth management.
Hmm.
And so had an internship in research, and that kind of pushed me towards the other side of wealth management.
Right.
So it's all just about shaping your direction generally.
But you really took a proactive approach from the start and took those steps, which then again made you stand out
Hmm.
to Manning. So thank you.
No, definitely. It does look good on a resume having other internships and just a broad, swath of experience, I'd say.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
we always recommend more than one. And I
Mhm.
think,
Mhm.
having this is a perfect example of why we say more
Mhm.
than one, right? You get an idea of what one's like, what you like, and what you don't like.
Mhm.
So,
No, if I could have more summers of summer internships, I definitely would, because I feel like it's just, 3 or 4 months of doing something to learn if you like it or not. And
Mhm.
if I could do that infinitely, I feel like I'd have my dream position one day. But you only get 3 or 4 summers to really do it. So you gotta take advantage of that.
absolutely. Ben, I'm going to go to you. We talked a little bit already about, ways that students can tap into internships, but I'm curious just careers for students who are looking at the careers with Manning and Napier. Can you talk a little bit more about what careers are available? Because as you did mention earlier, there's more than just wealth management.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it always varies on the time as to what is actually available, but we have entry level positions in pretty much every department that we have at the firm, from compliance to my own department in HR, where I guess I technically was entry level when I started. So, 5 years ago, that was me. We have, wealth management and research, client services. I think if you were to highlight the departments where there's the most opportunity, it's client services, it is wealth management, and it is research. Those are the three that I would say a heavy majority of our entry level employees start or fresh college grads start. We have what's called a client services growth team here at the firm. And basically what that is it's three positions in client services for recent college graduates or somebody who, started working for 6, 8 months and realized they wanted to shift gears. We place them in this client services growth team where essentially they're a client services associate by trade. And that's what they do as their day to day. But the goal is to get them out of that role within a year and a half into something that they want to be doing, whether that's continuing client services, whether that's moving to wealth management, whether that's moving to research or operations, you name it. The opportunities are kind of endless for it, but the goal of that program is for growth. And so it's not meant to be a long-term role. And it's more come in, work really hard, do a good job. Let's find what you want to do as a long-term role and let's get you there. So it's kind of like a, it's not a rotational program, I wouldn't say, but the goal is to kind of move up quickly. And so that's something we have in our Rochester office. So it's for Rochester employees. We, target, like I said, recent college graduates kind of across the board. And typically, that position will come free every year and a half, basically, is the way that it works. We hired all three at the same time the first time around. So that's the most common area. But we have your one-offs. And if you're on the career site looking, I think the best thing to do is if you're not sure if something is a good fit or you're not sure if it's something for someone who's, a recent college graduate, just send me an email. My contact information is kind of tied to every job posting and you can find me pretty easily. So send me an email, call us, whatever the case may be. Always happy to answer questions for interested students, I think, and never closed off to anything. Even if the role looks like it may be a little bit outside of your experience level, just still call and we can talk about it. So
It's very nice. So thanks, Ben. All right. Should we jump in our last two questions?
Yeah.
Okay. So we ask all our guests. We'll give you both the opportunity. We'll start with Owen. If you could kind of think back, what's one piece of wisdom or advice you would offer to our students from that you've learned in life or on the job?
Like for applying to internships
It
or
could be
just
anything in life that you wish you had learned sooner.
Definitely just show your personality. Don't be like shy to show who you are. People give people something to remember you by.
I like that. Thank
Yeah.
you for saying that.
Mhm.
Yeah. What would you say, Ben?
I guess specifically, if I were to look back at advice I give myself, I think I was probably your average college student. I would say always, always have a conversation with somebody, even if you're not sure. Always be open to it. Be open to everything that may come your way, because you never know which door will open, and you never know if it will be the right one. Never would have thought I'd be in HR, 6 years ago, but here I am because I was open to a conversation. I think that that's the most important advice I can give is use your network and always be open, and opportunities will, find their way to you, I guess, to some extent.
Our last question, how can students best connect with you, Owen?
Definitely just LinkedIn. I have a public profile. You can just go and follow me or connect with me. All my stuff's there. Shoot me a message. Yeah, it's probably the best way.
Perfect. And Ben, how about you?
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably also the best way for me, similar to Owen. I have, you can find my profile pretty easily. Also, I get emails and phone calls all the time. I'm never against that. So if you'd rather just send me an email, or whether you call my direct line or you call just our office and it gets forwarded to me, those are all also good ways to do it. But LinkedIn is probably the quickest and most available way for everybody.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you both for being here in person and virtually. And we appreciate our students for tuning in. You can find us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, at USF MUMA.
That's it. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.